I can't believe I'm writing this, but here we are. My name is Matt, and I'm a 34-year-old guy who just had a pretty wild ride of emotions in the last few months. My wife Jenna and I had been married for 7 years. We were supposed to be a solid couple, the kind you see in those Insta-perfect relationship posts. But life threw us a curveball when I was diagnosed with cancer. Yeah, that's right. While I was trying to fight for my life, my world crashed down in a way I never expected. Everything seemed normal at first, or at least I thought it was. Jenna was supportive in the beginning. She would come with me to chemo sessions, hold my hand while I was sick, and even try to make light of the situation. I should have known better. As the months went on, I started to notice little changes in her behavior. She became distant, glued to her phone, and often made excuses to be away from home. I tried to push those thoughts aside, convincing myself that she was just stressed from my illness. But when you're sitting in a chair with a poison drip in your mind tends to wander. I remember one instance when she came home late from the gym. I brushed it off, thinking she was just trying to blow off steam. But the excuses got more elaborate. I had to help Lisa with her project. Or the yoga class ran over. I wanted to believe her because I didn't want to think that my wife could betray me during one of the hardest times in my life. The moment everything shattered was when I was halfway through a chemo session. I was feeling nauseous and weak, and Jenna handed me her phone to call the nurse. I was just about to press the dial when I saw a message preview pop up. The sender was Dr. Stevens, my cancer doctor. I froze. The text read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll make sure you're feeling good after our session." My heart sank. Suddenly, the room felt like it was closing in on me. I didn't want to believe it, but there it was, as clear as day. In that moment, I felt like I was being punched in the gut. Could she really be having an affair with my doctor? It felt like a sick joke. I quickly scrolled through their conversation, and it was a whirlwind of flirty messages and innuendos. I couldn't comprehend it. My mind was racing, and I felt sick, not just from the chemo, but from the betrayal. When the nurse came in to check on me, I barely processed what she said. I just kept staring at the screen, feeling my life unravel in real time. I had to get out of there. I didn't even finish the session. I just grabbed my things and left. I drove home in a daze, my heart pounding, anger boiling inside me. How could she do this? How could he? I parked the car and just sat there for a moment, tears streaming down my face. When I finally walked into the house, Jenna was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up, smiled, and asked how my day went. I felt rage boil within me, and I didn't even know how to articulate what I had just discovered. I paced around the living room, trying to calm down. I needed to confront her but didn't know how to start. Just. Then she got up and walked toward me, her smile fading as she read the look on my face. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. I knew I had to confront her, but part of me was terrified of her reaction. Would she deny it? Would she try to blame me for pushing her away during my illness? All I knew was that I needed answers. Stay tuned for what happened next, as the confrontation led me on a path I never expected. The moment hung in the air like a heavy fog, and I could feel Jenna's confusion turning into concern. "Matt, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice laced with a hint of anxiety. I took a deep breath, trying to control the storm brewing inside me. The knot in my stomach twisted tighter as I finally found the words. "Who is Dr. Stevens to you?" I blurted out, my voice shaking. Jenna's face twisted with confusion, and I could see her brain racing as she tried to piece together what I was asking. Her eyes darted away from mine, and just for a brief second I saw a flicker of something, guilt perhaps, I wasn't sure. "What do you mean, Matt? He's my doctor, your doctor. Why are you asking me about him?" She tried to play it cool, but I could hear the slight tremor in her voice. I didn't respond, instead pulling out my phone and showing her the screen. I watched as her face drained of color, her eyes widening in panic. "Where did you get that?" she demanded, her voice rising. The denial in her tone was like a slap to the face, and I felt my anger surge to the surface. "You really need to explain this to me, Jenna. I need to know what's going on." Okay, let me explain," she stammered, her composure slipping. "It's not what you think. We were just being friendly. I mean, he's been so supportive through this whole thing, you know. It's been hard on both of us." Her excuse was pathetic, and I could feel my blood boiling. "Supportive? Is that what you call it?" Because it looks like flirty texts to me. You know, the kind of texts that you don't send to someone who's just your doctor. I shouted, my voice echoing through the empty house. Matt, please, I didn't mean to hurt you. You have to understand, sometimes it feels so lonely with you being sick. I needed someone to talk to connect with. She was grasping at straws, and I could see the desperation in her eyes, but I wasn't buying it. You had me. You had me fighting for my life, and instead of being there for me, you were flirting with my doctor. My voice cracked, and I felt the weight of betrayal crushing me. I can't believe this. You're supposed to be my partner, Jenna. How could you do this? I'm sorry, I didn't mean for it to happen, she whined, her eyes darting away from mine as if she couldn't handle the truth. It just happened. He made me feel good, you know. I didn't want to feel like this anymore. I wanted to escape. Escape. I interrupted, incredulous. Escape what? Your husband who's fighting a life-threatening illness. You think cheating on me is going to make that better? Her face twisted in anger, and I could see the facade of innocence slipping. The truth was leaking through the cracks, and it was both frightening and liberating. You don't understand, she shouted, her voice rising. You're the one who made this so hard. You're sick, and it feels like I'm losing you every day. Don't you dare put this on me. I yelled, my voice echoing off the walls. I'm fighting for my life, and you're sleeping with the guy who's supposed to be helping me. That's not the way to deal with things. We stood there in silence, both of us panting, the air thick with tension and accusations. I could see her eyes watering, and for a brief moment I felt a pang of sympathy, but it was drowned out by the anger and betrayal that flooded my heart. I didn't want to hear her pathetic excuses anymore. Honestly, Jenna, I don't know if I can look at you the same way again, I said, my voice lower now but heavy with pain. It hurt to say those words, but I needed her to understand the gravity of the situation. You've shattered my trust, and right now, I don't know if I can forgive you. She opened her mouth to respond, but I turned away, leaving her speechless as I walked out of the room. I needed space to think, to process everything. I could hear her voice behind me pleading, but I couldn't bear to listen. I felt like my heart had been ripped out and stomped on. I went into our bedroom, slumping onto the bed and burying my face in my hands. The betrayal was unbearable, and I felt a deep sense of loss. I thought about all the moments we had shared, the laughter, the love, the plans for the future, and now it felt like it had all been a lie. With the cancer, I was already fighting for my life, but now I had to fight for my dignity too. As the tears fell, I realized I didn't just need to be angry. I needed a plan. I needed to figure out how to move forward, whether that meant making sense of this wreck of a marriage or cutting my losses. But for now, I had to sit with the pain and betrayal and decide what my next steps would be. Would I confront her again, or was it time for me to take action? I didn't know yet, but I felt a fire igniting inside me. A fire that would not only push me to survive this cancer battle, but also to reclaim my life. Whatever it took. The hours dragged on as I sat in that bedroom, the weight of betrayal heavy on my chest. Jenna's pleas echoed in my mind, but I couldn't shake off that feeling of raw anger and hurt. I had trusted her, and in my most vulnerable moments, she had turned her back on me. The emotional turmoil left my mind racing. How could I move forward from this? Eventually, I forced myself to stand. I knew I needed to take action rather than wallow in my despair. I needed to gather evidence, not just for my own peace of mind, but also to confront her with facts if she continued to deny the affair. I grabbed her phone, still sitting on the kitchen counter where she had left it, and began scrolling through her messages. I knew it was wrong, but right now, I didn't care. I needed clarity, and if that meant invading her privacy, so be it. As I sifted through her conversations, I found more than I anticipated. There were flirty texts exchanged with Dr. Stevens, but there were also conversations with her friends where she openly discussed her discontent with our marriage. Matt, so weak from the treatments, she had written. I just can't take it anymore. I need someone who can actually be there for me. Each word felt like a knife twisting in my gut. They laughed and joked about my situation while I fought for my life, and it was sickening. Something inside me snapped. I felt a surge of adrenaline rush through me, and I realized I needed to confront her again. But this time I would do it with evidence in hand. I waited until I heard her footsteps as she walked down the hall, her voice low as she spoke to someone on the phone. I could only assume it was Dr. Stevens. My heart raced. I had to do this now. I stormed into the living room, and she jumped, startled by my sudden appearance. The color drained from her face as she saw the expression written all over mine. "Who are you talking to, Jenna?" I demanded, my voice firm, echoing the resolve growing within me. "No one, just a friend," she stammered, trying to regain her composure, but I wasn't buying it anymore. "Really, because I think it's more than just a friend." I brandished her phone, the screen lit up with their conversations. "You've been texting your friend quite a lot. Care to explain why you're having such intimate conversations with my doctor?" Her eyes widened in shock, and I could see the panic set in. "Matt, please, you don't understand the context." I swear I didn't mean for it to go this far. Context? What context would make this acceptable? I felt the heat rising in my chest again. "You were my rock while I battled cancer. You were supposed to be here for me, not sneaking around with the man treating me. That's beyond betrayal, Jenna. That's a complete violation of our vows." Her defenses crumbled and she began to break down. "I was lonely. I was scared. You were slipping away. I just wanted to feel like I mattered, feel like you mattered." I shot back, incredulous. "You mattered to me. I was fighting for our family, and you threw it all away for some twisted fantasy with my doctor." "It was a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "I thought I could separate my feelings. It just happened, and I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't cut it," I replied coldly, my heart racing with betrayal and anger. "You've destroyed the trust we built. You were supposed to support me, and instead you crushed me. You have no idea what I'm going through, and now this. What am I supposed to do with this information?" She tried to reach for me, grasping at straws, but I stepped back, feeling sick. "I want you to understand the gravity of what you've done. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. You've shattered everything we built, and I don't even know if I want to try to fix it." The silence that followed was suffocating, filled only by the sound of her sobs. I turned away, needing to put distance between us. I had to think. I couldn't make any rash decisions in the heat of the moment. I took a few minutes to breathe, walking out into the backyard. The air was crisp, and I could feel the cool breeze against my skin. It was refreshing, a welcome contrast to the chaos inside. I needed clarity, and I needed a plan. I couldn't just take her back without thinking. She had to understand the depths of her betrayal and the impact it had on our marriage. While I stood there, I realized I needed support. I couldn't go through this alone. Friends and family might help me process what was happening. Perhaps they could provide some guidance. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my contacts. I hesitated, unsure of who to call, but I couldn't ignore the need for a support system any longer. I decided to reach out to my buddy, Kyle. He had been there for me during my diagnosis and treatments, and I knew he'd have my back. I sent him a quick message. "Hey man, can we talk? I really need someone to lean on right now." His quick reply gave me a sliver of comfort. "Sure thing. Whenever you need, I'm here." But as I stood there, staring at the phone, I realized this was only the beginning of a long and painful road. I had to decide whether I wanted to fight for my marriage or if it was time to cut my losses and start anew. The anger was still fresh, but deep down, I felt the sadness creeping in. I was still in love with her, despite everything. But love alone wouldn't fix the mess we were in. I took a deep breath and walked back inside, fully aware that the next steps would define not only the future of our marriage but my own path forward. The confrontation was just a stepping stone, and I was prepared to navigate through whatever came next. When I walked back inside, Jenna was still sitting on the couch, her face buried in her hands, sobs shaking her body. The sight was gut-wrenching and surreal. I had never seen her like this before. In our years together, she had always been the strong one, the one who held everything together while I was off chasing my dreams. Seeing her crumpled and broken stirred a mix of emotions in me: anger, pity, and an echo of love that felt like it had been buried under a mountain of betrayal. Despite everything, I still had to remind myself of what had happened. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads, and I needed to decide which path to take. I had already confronted her, but now I needed to think about what would come next. I could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on me. "Matt, please," she said, lifting her head, her eyes red and puffy from crying. "I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I was just so lost and I made a horrible mistake. Her voice trembled and there was a desperation in her eyes that tugged at my heart. I don't know if I can believe you, Jenna, I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the emotional turmoil inside me. You say you're sorry, but what does that really mean? It feels like you've betrayed me at my most vulnerable moment. How can I trust you again? I promise I'll do anything to make this right, she pleaded, her voice cracking. I'll go to counseling. I'll cut off all contact with him, I swear. Just give me a chance to prove I can be better. Her words hung in the air, and for a moment I felt a flicker of hope, but it was quickly overshadowed by the reality of the situation. Jenna, it's going to take more than promises. You have to understand the damage this has done. I'm in the middle of fighting for my life here, and instead of being my partner, you turn to someone else for comfort. I know, she whispered, her eyes welling up with tears again. But I thought you were slipping away from me. I didn't know how to cope. I thought I could handle it, but I was wrong. I should have communicated with you instead of running away. Do you even understand how I felt when I found those texts? It was like being stabbed in the back when I'm already on the ground. I hated how my voice wavered, but I couldn't help it. The emotional weight was crushing. I was dreading every appointment, every session, and then to learn that you were betraying me. It felt like my entire world was collapsing. She reached for my hand, and I instinctively pulled away, the physical distance reflecting the emotional chasm between us. Matt, I'm so ashamed, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I just wanted to feel wanted again. It's no excuse, I know that, but I didn't know how to handle everything. Please, I can't lose you. I paused, my heart torn. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think that maybe, just maybe, we could salvage something from the wreckage. But the reality was hard to ignore. I had to think of myself and my own mental health. I don't know if I can forgive you right now, I said, my voice firm yet pained. I need time to think. I need to figure out what I want for myself, for my future. Her face crumbled and I felt a pang of guilt. Matt, please don't leave me, she begged, tears streaming down her cheeks. I love you. I still love you. Love doesn't justify betrayal, I replied, my voice heavy with emotion. You need to understand that. I need to process everything before I make any decisions about us. As those words left my mouth, I felt a strange sense of clarity wash over me. I didn't want to make any hasty decisions that I might regret later. I needed to take the time to evaluate not just the relationship, but also my own feelings and where I stood in all of this. I decided it was best to spend some time apart to let the dust settle. I think it's best if we take a break from each other for a while. I need time away to think and figure out what I want, what I deserve. Her face fell and she nodded slowly, the reality of my words sinking in. Okay, I understand. Just know that I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I'll fight for you, for us. I know, I replied, trying to sound reassuring. But right now, I need to focus on recovering both from this sickness and from what you've done. I'll be staying with Kyle for a bit. The mention of my friend's name seemed to ignite a spark of recognition in her eyes. You're really leaving? I need to, I said, my voice steady. We need space. I'll be back to get some things, maybe. Then we can talk about what's next. With that, I turned and walked out of the room, the tension between us still palpable. I grabbed a few essentials, my heart heavy with uncertainty and a strange sense of relief. I felt like I was taking control of my life for the first time in months. As I drove to Kyle's place, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions swirling inside me. I felt angry, betrayed, and sad, but beneath all of that was a flicker of hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this would be the wake-up call we both needed. I pulled into Kyle's driveway, the familiar surroundings offering a sense of comfort. I needed to talk, and I needed a friend to help me figure out my next steps. As I stepped out of the car, I took a deep breath, preparing myself for the conversation ahead. I needed to process everything, to vent, and to figure out what I wanted moving forward, both with my health and my marriage. I walked to the front door, ready to face whatever awaited me on the other side. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was prepared to confront the pain and find a way to heal. Whatever happened next, I knew I had to take it one step at a time. Kyle was already waiting for me when I arrived. He opened the door with a warm smile that quickly faded when he saw my face. "Hey man, you okay?" he asked, concern etched across his features. I could tell he sensed the gravity of the situation just by the way I stood there, shoulders slumped and eyes downcast. I stepped inside and leaned against the wall, taking a deep breath before launching into my story. I found out Jenna's been cheating on me, I said, my voice trembling slightly as I spoke the words out loud for the first time. It felt surreal, like I was recounting someone else's terrible story rather than my own. What? With who? Kyle's eyes widened in disbelief, and I could see his protective instincts kicking in. Dr. Stevens. My cancer doctor, I replied, the bitterness in my voice unmistakable. I found texts on her phone while I was in the chemo chair. Man, I'm so sorry, he said, shaking his head, disbelief washing over him. That's messed up. I nodded, the anger bubbling up again. I confronted her, but it was just a mess of excuses. She said she was lonely, that she didn't know how to handle my illness, but that doesn't justify what she did. Kyle ran a hand through his hair, trying to process what I had just told him. Have you thought about what you want to do next? I'm not sure, I admitted, pacing the small living room. I told her I needed space. I feel so conflicted. Part of me wants to just pack up and leave, but another part of me remembers the good times we had. Dude, that's understandable, he said, leaning back against the couch. But you have to think about what's best for you. If she's already betrayed you once, what's stopping her from doing it again? I know, I sighed, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. But I still love her. I thought we were solid, you know. We had plans, everything was supposed to be different when I got better. But you can't build a future on a broken foundation. Kyle's tone was firm, and I could see the concern in his eyes. You need to put yourself first right now, especially with what you're going through physically. As he spoke, the truth began to sink in. I couldn't ignore the facts. I had been fighting for my life, and instead of standing beside me, Jenna had turned to someone else for comfort. It just hurts so damn much, I murmured, running a hand through my hair in frustration. Kyle nodded, his expression softening. It's okay to feel that way. It's okay to grieve for the relationship you thought you had. But don't let her actions dictate your worth. You deserve better. We talked for hours, Kyle letting me vent my frustrations and fears. I shared stories of our relationship, both the highs and the lows, and how I felt like I was losing her at the same time I was losing my health. Each revelation was met with Kyle's reassurance that I wasn't alone in this fight. Eventually, he asked, "Have you thought about counseling for yourself?" Honestly, I hadn't, I replied, pushing myself to consider the idea. But maybe I should. I need to process everything, this whole situation, my health, everything. Yeah, that could help, he said. Talking to someone who knows what they're doing might give you clarity. It's a lot to handle alone. That idea began to settle in my mind, a flicker of hope against the backdrop of turmoil. If I could work through my feelings with a professional, maybe I could gain some perspective on my marriage too. You're right, I'll look into it, I finally said, a bit more reassured. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, and as the evening wore on, I felt some of the weight lift off my shoulders. We watched movies, shared old stories, and even laughed, something I hadn't done in what felt like ages. It reminded me of the importance of having someone in my corner, and I was grateful for Kyle's unwavering support. As we settled in for the night, I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. I hadn't realized how draining the day had been, both physically and emotionally. Thanks for being here, man, I told Kyle, sincerity flooding my voice. Always, bro, we'll get through this together, he replied, clapping me on the back. That night I fell into a troubled sleep, my mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. I knew I had tough decisions to make, but for the first time in a while, I felt a sense of clarity. I needed to focus on healing, both from cancer and from the betrayal that had shattered my trust. The next morning, I woke up determined. I picked up my phone and began searching for therapists in the area that specialized in relationship issues and cancer support. It felt like a small step, but it was a step toward regaining control of my life and my emotions. As I sipped my coffee, I realized I had to confront Jenna again at some point. I wasn't sure when or how, but I knew it would happen. I needed to establish boundaries, to communicate what I expected moving forward if we were going to salvage our relationship. For now, I had to focus on myself. I was still in a battle, and it wasn't just against cancer anymore. It was against the heartbreak and betrayal I felt within the walls of my own home. I was ready to face it all, one day at a time, and I wouldn't back down. The journey wouldn't be easy, and I knew there would be more difficult conversations ahead, but something deep inside me felt determined to reclaim my life. Whatever happened next, I was ready to fight tooth and nail for my health, my happiness, and my future. The next few days passed in a blur as I focused on scheduling therapy sessions and taking care of myself during my treatments. Each session brought a mix of relief and anxiety. I was able to vent about my frustrations, my fears, and the heartache that seemed to linger like an unwelcome shadow. My therapist was supportive and encouraging, guiding me to explore my feelings about Jenna and the betrayal. I also decided to have a more serious conversation with her when I was ready. I needed to set boundaries and express what I expected moving forward. I couldn't leave this chapter of my life without addressing what had happened, and I knew it would help me find closure, whether that meant repairing our marriage or moving on entirely. After a week of processing, I finally reached out to Jenna. I felt a mixture of anxiety and resolve as I typed a message asking her to meet. She responded quickly, her eagerness evident in her reply. "I'll be there. I miss you," she wrote. When the day came, I felt my heart racing as I waited for her to arrive. I chose a small cafe that we used to frequent, hoping the familiar atmosphere would soften the tension. It felt surreal to be sitting there, knowing that everything had changed yet again. When she walked in, the warmth of her smile faded as soon as she saw my serious expression. I gestured for her to sit down, and she did, her eyes searching mine for clues about what I was going to say. "Thank you for coming," I said, my voice steady but firm. "I wanted to talk about what happened." "Matt, I'm so sorry for everything," she started, her voice laced with emotion. "I've been thinking about it nonstop. I'll do anything to make it right." "Before you say anything else, I want to make it clear that I don't want to hear any more excuses," I interrupted. "What happened between you and Dr. Stevens hurt me more than I can put into words. I was fighting for my life, and instead of supporting me, you turned to someone else." Her expression fell, and I could see the guilt washing over her. I know, I made a horrible mistake and I can't take it back." "Right," I said, leaning forward, "but we need to talk about what happens next. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this about us. I won't lie, it's going to take a lot for me to trust you again." "I understand," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll do whatever it takes, I promise." "Trust is earned, Jenna. It's not just given back by saying you're sorry," I replied, my heart racing. "You need to cut off all contact with Dr. Stevens. No more texting, no more appointments with him. That's non-negotiable." Her eyes widened as she nodded. "I will. I promise I'll do it. I also think it would help if you went to counseling, not just for us but for yourself too. You need to figure out why you felt you had to seek comfort elsewhere instead of coming to me." Tears filled her eyes and she nodded. "I can do that. I want to understand and fix this." "Good," I said, feeling a sense of control wash over me. "I want to work on our marriage, but we both need to acknowledge that it's going to take time and effort. I need to prioritize my health right now, and I can't do that if I'm constantly worried about what you're doing." "Matt, I'll do whatever it takes to make this work," she reiterated, her sincerity evident in her voice. "I want you to know that I still care about you," I continued, my heart heavy. "But I need to focus on getting healthy, and I need you to be solidly on my side. No more doubts, no more secrets." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our conversation hanging in the air. It was a lot to process, and I could see the relief in her face. But I also knew that trust would take time to rebuild. "Thank you for being willing to talk about this," Jenna finally said, her voice softening. "I know it won't be easy, but I'm committed to making things right." "I appreciate that," I said, maintaining eye contact. "Let's take it one step at a time. I'll focus on my health and you focus on earning back my trust. If we can do that, maybe we'll find our way back to each other." As we parted ways that day, I felt a strange mix of hope and apprehension. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to take it. I was fighting for my life, and that included fighting for my emotional well-being. In the weeks that followed, I focused on my recovery, both physically and emotionally. Jenna followed through with her commitments, seeking counseling and cutting ties with my doctor. We had some challenging conversations, but we also found moments of laughter and connection that reminded me of why I fell in love with her in the first place. It was a slow process, but we both made progress. I learned to communicate my needs, and she worked to understand the root of her actions. Each small step felt like a victory, and I began to feel a sense of control returning to my life. Through it all, I realized that I was capable of resilience, not just in battling cancer, but in navigating the complexities of relationships too. I learned that healing takes time, and it's okay to feel lost along the way. As I sit here writing this, I reflect on the journey that brought me to this point. I've faced betrayal, heartbreak, and illness, but I've also discovered strength and the power of second chances. I'm not sure where the road will lead us, but I'm committed to taking it one step at a time, toward healing, toward hope, and toward a future that I can shape for myself. And if there's one thing I want to pass on to anyone reading this, it's this. Prioritize your well-being, communicate openly, and don't be afraid to fight for what you deserve. Life can throw curveballs, but it's how you respond that truly defines you.